Hi everyone. So the period of intermittent unemployment that dogged the opening years of my so-called decade finally came to an end, like it always does. Via an email or phone call, I can't remember which, because someone thought of me when an opportunity came up. This one pulled me into the consultancy life. I can't remember how I got the call, but it was an "Are you interested in this" call, and I rapidly found myself flying to and from the town of Crawley just outside Gatwick Airport every Monday and Thursday for 18 months. A very confusing time, because I was coming out of that period of unemployment, so I was not in the best place psychologically. The project was trying to get off the ground to some extent in secrecy, which was really weird. It involved working with new people who worked in a way and had attitudes to things that weren't overly mine at the time, though that would change. The project even stopped and downed tools and started again some weeks later. There was a tumultuous period. Ultimately, what did this consultancy life involve? Well, different things for different people. But for me, it was specifically two complex IT-enabled change projects with two different defence companies. In each case, working within a highly skilled team to undertake big and challenging work. It involved working on site Monday to Thursday, so being away 3 nights. 2 projects, 18 months each. I rode that consultancy life for 3 years. Does that sound strange? Well, you'd be right. There are a number of themes to it. You discover you have an obsession with collecting loyalty points and rewards. We had all our travel, accommodation and food paid for, so any rewards we accumulated came free. You accumulate a lot of hotel points when you're living in the same hotel for 3 nights a week for like 3 years. You also discover odd things. I switched my method of travel to the train, as it was less tiring and gave me time I could spend doing my own thing. I was a bit selfish in that regard, but train journeys are quite pleasant, especially if you get first class paid for. You only discover how often people commit suicide by jumping in front of trains when you get on one every Monday and Thursday. It is surprisingly regular. It was quite shocking, and you deal with it in a typically human nature sort of way, right? It becomes so regular, you get darkly humorous about it, and you just start viewing it as a way to get 50% back on a ticket you didn't pay for because of delay repay. I mean, human nature, right? Well, not all of them. A core of consultants are of a certain type, right? They're very success-based, very success and reputation-based. I'd never worked in an environment before where you were more likely to be told the brands a person had worked for with a firm, very firm handshake before learning their actual name. Some introductions were like a social conflict or a reputation-based pissing contest before you knew the person was called Jeff. In truth, despite these idiosyncrasies, I viewed this period of my life as absolutely fantastic because the job was perfect. It paid me very well for bringing my own knowledge, experience and skills to the problem, which was a goddamn relief because it was a thinking man's game with a focus on actually delivering, which is perfect for me. I'd spent ages looking for jobs and getting shunted to jobs that involved managing large departments, which I'd never done before and wouldn't find fun, and it was absolutely liberating. There is also something to be said for working with very clever people, the core of who I deeply respected, and we spent a lot of time together. It was like being in a high-performance team doing difficult and challenging things, both technically, organisationally, in terms of change. It was the career equivalent of being on a great sports team. And anyone who has done that, not me, but I'm making an analogy, knows that is a drug. I enjoyed the parallel of life that came with the experience. There were 4 days where I focused on work, often working 40+ hours in those 4 days. But we lived in hotels or cottages, we ate at restaurants. I'm not going to really describe it as that whole romantic work hard, play hard thing because let's face it, that's a load of bollocks. But it did create a nice separation between work and free time. And you learn a lot. Regular subscribers know how I'm paranoid about being overly financially secure. So it did appeal to me on that front. To earn the same in a traditional job at the time, I'd have to have a salary of 100k. And my rate wasn't even that spectacular, and I ran out of things to spend it on. So we effectively paid off the mortgage. And all this isn't me seeking the need to sort of humble or not so humble brag, but I'll admit it was a heady time for me. But it is both a solid 3 years of my so-called decade and also important for later. As this 3 years of consultancy put my wife and me at a pivotal point in our lives, right? We had an offset mortgage and we had more savings than we had a balance. We'd effectively, at the age of 43, paid off our house. We literally sat at a point where we could and should have been considering bigger things, bolder, life-altering decisions. And I don't know whether our migration to Australia played into this, but we didn't. Instead, we played it safe. I mean, a big decision was made. Obviously, a big decision did happen, but it went in a different direction. We reached a point in our lives when we should have been thinking bigger and we didn't, which is ironic, as in the last decade we did think big, possibly way too early. And the fact it created a parallel life was weird, but we both at the time professed to like it. Yeah, I was away, but we maximised the weekends we had going. We could go on free trips due to reward points and free train tickets. Sadly, paid with the unfortunate souls who had chosen to end their lives. It was a pain I was away, but we felt the time we did have when I was back was more focused and better. And sometimes she'd obviously come to me, going to London while I was at work. Critical question you probably should be asking is, did living apart change us? Did it become something that rewrote our individual and relationship DNA? Well, undoubtedly it did. I don't think there's any hiding that. I can't put any measure on it, but I believe my wife became more self-reliant and bolder, which is a good thing. In some ways, and no doubt very different ones, was me working away and her living independently for 4 days sort of her MBA, a period in which the independence changed her in ways I have to admit, to this day, I probably couldn't itemise out clearly. Ultimately, the consultancy period came to an end and I found work back at home, and we moved back to living like normal folk, spending all 7 days together. Until the next chapter, you can support me by doing a few simple things. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, certainly post a comment, and let's continue to make small great changes to make life a story worth telling.